Hey friends, good evening. My name is Alexa Eden. I'm very excited to be here on the Light of the Infinite Festival. This is my third opportunity to speak to this community, and it's worldwide, so I'm very excited to be here. Thank you, Erez, for putting it together, as always. And tonight I'm very excited to talk about, I think, a unique topic that isn't covered a lot, and hopefully we'll all walk away with some tools that will help us strike a balance. So a little bit about me. My name is Alexa Eden. Alexa like Amazon, Eden like the garden. And my work focuses primarily on the balance of accelerated technology and slow conscious living. So as so many of us know, over the past decade, 2 decades, technology has really creeped its way into our most intimate spaces in our days, in our minds, and in our lives. And so what I focus on is how do you find the balance, the healthy balance of technology in a way that's really going to help you thrive and optimize your life. So not only you can be a better person, but actually your soul can shine through and you can show up in the world as you're meant to show up. So in this particular arena and topic of the evening, we're going to be talking about Sefirat HaOmer, which we know and have heard from many amazing speakers tonight, that the counting of the Omer is actually a spiritual accounting and a spiritual climb for us to really reach the pinnacle moment of us receiving the Torah as the Jewish people. I think I can speak for myself, and I know for many people around the world, Jews included, these past 6 months have been grueling on us. And so when we look at this evolution of the Jewish people, this is when we really get to see things put to the test. So a little bit about myself. I'm an urban wellness consultant. I focus primarily on this balance of technology and slow living, but I've also turned to Judaism, Torah, and mitzvahs over the last 10 years to really add to my personal development interest. As I've gotten more introduced to Torah and mitzvahs, I realized that every year is a cycle. Every Chag is an opportunity for us to reflect back on the former year and to learn more about where we've been, where we are, and where we hope to go. So as we climb during the Sefirat HaOmer, we have an opportunity to really look at all of our strengths, all of our capacities, all of our weaknesses, all of our energetic outputs, and say, how do I strengthen this? How do I become better at this? One thing that I've seen in my work is that while we have this infrastructure in the Jewish calendar and in the Torah, and we know how to pull all these pieces apart, what we don't see this relationship in is our relationship with technology. We don't have a system that allows us to take accounting and take stock that says, how am I doing with my relationship? Am I spending too much time, not enough time? Is it productive for me? Is it helping me? Is it hurting me? And so that's what I really want to work on tonight is, can we dissect and look at our relationship with technology in a way that's going to give us an empowered place to go forward with over the next couple weeks, and then eventually once we receive the Torah to feel completely ready to kind of hold this new relationship with our technology, with social media, and everything that comes with it. So before we get started on a workshop, I'll give you some time maybe to get a piece of paper if you don't already have one, or if you want to take some notes. I would definitely recommend it because we are going to go through a step-by-step process. But I first want to start with a story. Within the last few months, I gave myself permission to spend some extra time on social media. Every so often, maybe once a month, I'll say, I'm going free into social media world and I'm going to see what I find, what I learn, and I just give myself that permission. Now, one night I gave myself this permission and I said, I'm going to look at what's going on in the world, what's happening in the war, what's happening in the news. Now, flash forward until the morning. First thing in the morning, 6 a.m. I wake up, it's quiet, you can't hear anything outside, it's just me and my thoughts. I haven't yet looked at my phone, and as I make my way to my morning practice to do yoga in the morning, I hear one thing going through my mind, and that is the chant from the river to the sea, and you know the rest. Now it's first thing in the morning, I haven't yet looked at anything, I haven't even had coffee. And the first thing that's going on in my head is this chant. Now, it was exactly in this moment where I asked myself, first of all, what do I do about this? And second of all, I don't want this in my mind. So let's look at it for a second. The first thing is, I said Shema Yisrael, and I meditated on the Shema maybe 15 times. I just said it all the way through 15 times, and I cleared my mind of that. So much so that 3 weeks later, as I kept telling this story in my speaking engagements, I couldn't even remember the chant. I had cleaned my mind so much just by saying Shema Yisrael that my mind didn't even remember that chant. Now, first, you think that's pretty amazing, but when we look at all of the rituals and the prayers and Tehillim and everything that we have available to us, we don't always see the benefit of it. Sometimes we feel calmer in our heart, or we have a lot more clarity, or we can see the world with a lot more light and connection. But this was such a grounded, practical experience and expression of how my connection to Jewish content, to the words, to the prayers, can actually help my inner world in such a way that it gives me freedom and space from anything that I don't want in my life. The second thing is, what am I giving my conscious attention to that I could wake up first thing in the morning and have something like this going through my mind? So here's where we're going to begin. I want us first to think about how can we distinguish on social media the difference between the trauma and the truth. Now, many of us turn to social media because that's a news outlet, that's where we're getting updates, that's where we're seeing our friends post interesting things, and we're really getting a view of the world. But what we've also seen is that over the last 6-8 months, even more, that social media and the algorithms that it's built on can absolutely and are absolutely being weaponized. So when we start to change our perspective around social media, not as being a social media site, but actually for being a tool of consciousness, we give ourselves a lot more power on what we're giving our attention to. When you realize that it's not just designed for you to look at certain things or buy certain things, and it's not just getting to know you on that level, but it's starting to sway public opinion in a way that can cause really big impacts and damage to the world. So let's think for a second. In your life, how is social media helping you? And how is social media harming you? Take a second to reflect on this question for yourself. A lot of things come up for people in these moments. It helps me to stay connected, to feel expressed, to promote my business, to learn about the news. Those could all be really positive things. And now the negative things, it could say, I feel lonely. I feel like I'm putting myself against other people. I'm seeing a lot of images that I wish I could unsee. There's many ways that it could be harming you. So take a moment for yourself and think, how is social media helping you? And how is social media harming you? Now, for anyone who's just joining, my name is Alexa Eden. I'm an urban wellness consultant and spiritual coach. And tonight we're talking about our relationship with social media and technology, especially during these intense times. The first question I asked is, how is social media helping you? And how is social media harming you? Now, once you can distinguish between the positive aspects of social media and the negative aspects of social media, the next question I want to ask is, when is social media productive for you? And when is it draining you of your time and energy? These questions are questions that I've asked for years when I work with clients and when I work with organizations, but especially now in these moments when we are experiencing heightened sensitivity, trauma, news, information that's coming from all angles, now is a very important time to ask this question. When is using social media productive? And when is it draining you of your time and your energy. So when you wake up first thing in the morning, you have an 100% energy battery. Now, that 100%, that usage is all up to you. How do you want to invest that 100% battery into your day? Now, many people would say they want to put it into their most productive things first. But at the same time, they want to be updated on the news and what's happening, and they want to read those things. Now, what if you gave yourself that first hour just to tune into your most important things of the day? Maybe it's your to-do list, maybe it's your loved one, maybe it's your children. But what if for that first hour or 90 minutes, you gave yourself 100% energy self into the things that you love and care about most? Now, if you do that and then you turn into news and media outlets or work or something like that, you've now given yourself the priorities first and then other things after that. So I want you to think first is, when is social media productive in your life? And when does it drain you of your time and energy? We have 2 cycles in the day, in the morning and in the evening. I just spoke about the morning, but something to consider in the evening. Social media was introduced into our lives as an outlet, as entertainment, as a social platform where we could see what our friends were doing. But now that place where we used to go to unwind is actually introducing the complete opposite into our systems. That place where we used to watch funny memes and give ourselves that comic relief is actually now showing us violence and trigger traumas and all these things that we're saying, wait a second, I don't know if I signed up for this. No, because it's already so integrated into our lives, and this conversation that we're having right now is not so frequent, a lot of the times we don't stop and think long enough and intentionally enough to say, can I change this relationship to better serve me? Or do I need to give all of my freedom and all of my power to this device and this social media system that is actually not meant for my peace or happiness? It's taking from me. So that place just before bed, when you're ready to unwind, or after a long day of work and you go to relax, is now causing your entire nervous system to completely spike again in this fight or flight mode. Now, whether or not we can see these chemicals going through our body doesn't mean they don't exist. So when you are exposing yourself to information and energy that isn't necessarily calming energy, but actually could be very triggering, that's when we need to take a step back from it and create more space around our peace in order to create an additional evolution of self. So while we think about this second question of when is it productive to use social media and when is it harmful, I want to give us an opportunity just to pause for one moment and think. If we didn't have social media in our life, how would we be spending our time? Now, this is an important question for many of us who grew up with half of our lives without social media and technology and the other half integrating with it. We have an understanding and an awareness that there are other things that we can be doing in our life that's actually helpful and productive. And I want to give us all permission that we can introduce those things back into our lives. An interesting idea, and we saw it with the story I just shared, was when we are reading certain prayers and or Tehillim, we're giving our inner world a power wash. We're cleansing it of all the modern day noise that may or may not be helping us or hurting us, and giving us new space to create fertile grounds within our beings, in our hearts, in our consciousness, So whatever that is for you, whatever that practice is for you, whatever that prayer is, whatever that Tehillim is, create time in your day to bring that in. Because when you do, it becomes a lot easier to breathe and to release the grip on needing to know everything all the time. We're covering a lot here because this is really a conversation that I don't feel like happens enough. When we look at our relationship to technology and acknowledge it as a relationship and not just as a tool, it gives us a lot more awareness around how we are actually responding to its existence in our life. The third thing is, how are these sites making you feel? Now, it seems like a simple question, but I'm going to bring it down just a little bit more. How do you feel when you spend time on X social media site? Do you feel energized, inspired, creative, connected? Do you feel afraid, tired, isolated, lonely? If you actually pause for a moment and assess how you feel, it will reinforce your choice the next time you go and use that thing. Now, if you say, when I use this platform, I feel inspired and excited and creative and productive, and I feel like I want to do more with my time or my energy, you know that the next time you go to choose to do that thing, you're going to say, yes, that's something I want to invest my time and energy into. But if you've paused and thought for a moment and said, how does this make me feel? And you think isolated, lonely, disconnected, alone, afraid, overwhelmed, nervous, traumatized, then the next time you go to use that in that same way, you may think twice about that being a place that you're going to invest any time or energy. So think for a moment. Identify 1, 2, or 3 social media sites that you often use in your life, and ask yourself the question for each. How does this tool make me feel? For anyone who's just joining us now, my name is Alexa Eden. I'm an urban wellness coach and urban wellness consultant and spiritual coach. And my work focuses on the intersection and the balance of accelerated technology and slow conscious living. So as a Jew, as a Baal Tshuva, over the last 10 years, I've learned that Torah, mitzvahs, and everything that's involved in our cycles of time is something that helps us evolve year after year. It gives us tools to be self-expressed and also to learn more about who we are and who we want to be in the world. Now, given my direct focus in technology and that balance of tech and human, tonight we're focusing on our relationship with social media, especially given these intense times during the war with Hamas. So I want to give us new tools to equip us to feel good about how we choose to interact with and connect with social media and other news and digital sites that may or may not be helping us or hurting us. Next question I want to ask is, what can you personally add into your life instead of the automatic response to turn to social media? Now, for some people, that might look like exercise or reading a book or calling a friend or drawing or doing art or taking a walk, spending time in nature with your children or spending time with animals. There are many things to do that will take you away from social media, but instead nourish you in other ways. I think many of us have gotten used to the easy nature of social media and entertainment being right in our pocket. But when we actually swap it for something else that's more meaningful, more enriching, it gives us a lot more strength and power. So I want to explore it with you. What is 1 or 2 things in your life, based on what we spoke about, How is social media helping you or hurting you? When is social media helpful, or when does it drain your energy? How can you swap out something for that usage at the right time? Maybe it looks like carrying a book in your pocket. Maybe it looks like just sitting with uncomfortability when you're on the bus or on the train. I remember speaking with a young group of high school students last year in Jerusalem, and we had a similar conversation about their relationship with technology. And one of the young girls raised her hand and she said, all of this sounds like a really great idea, but when I'm sitting on the bus and everyone around me is on their phones, I feel stupid if I'm not on my phone. Now, I encouraged her just for a moment, what if you could explore that feeling of feeling stupid? What if you could explore that feeling of feeling uncomfortable in that moment? So instead of just getting used to looking at your phone in those moments, can you push yourself just a step further and say, I'm uncomfortable right now, but there's a benefit to this uncomfortableness. I want to stretch myself. I want to evolve. So in your own life, think about 1 or 2 moments where you find yourself sliding into that social media hole, and think, what could I transfer this out for? What could I put there instead? These are conversations that I have quite often with people that I work with and organizations that I speak to. And after we've seen these last 6 months, but really longer than that, how social media is completely swaying public opinion and changing the intellectual content that we're receiving on the digital platforms, it's really our responsibility for ourselves, for our families, for our communities, to create a new standard around these technologies. Not to just take it as it is and just get used to it like, oh, well, you know what? Everybody else has a phone, so I'll give my kid a phone. Or I can't really be bothered with this right now, so I'm just going to give them a screen. Now, what if you were able to invest in higher education, higher wisdom, higher insight in those moments? It's not easy, and it's definitely a practice, but when we invest in it and we allow ourselves to grow through this process, we'll see that there's a lot more we can swap out with rather than just going to default mode. The last thing I want to share and have you ponder and consider is loneliness is one of the largest epidemics in our world. And while we have thought that interconnectivity through social media and digital channels would bring us closer, in many ways it has brought us closer, but it's also brought us further away from ourselves. So this idea of loneliness is when we disconnect who we are with how we're showing up in the world. That difference between who we are happens when we allow ourselves to be numbed by the outside world. Now, when we slide off our phone, whether it's for Shabbat or whether it's throughout the week, just for some extra moments of peace, we actually invest in us being who we really are in the world. So my suggestion for you is not just to be comfortable with the idea that once a week for 25 hours we turn off our phone and that's enough. Consider now that throughout the week we may need maintenance in staying connected to who we really are and what we're really all about. When we slide off that phone and we're in our world, we're with our families, we're with our children, we're with our spouses, we're with ourselves, and we consider who we are at our core, that is the most expensive currency that we can have and utilize in this world. So as we explore this relationship with technology, I also want to give you permission to step into yourself at the same time. Get curious about who you are, what you're afraid of, why you turn to social media, what's uncomfortable for you, what are you seeking, what do you hope to find there? And when you ask yourself these questions, you actually start to create a roadmap, a landscape, if you will, of who you are, how you feel about certain things. With this, there's an immense opportunity to turn to your community. When you step away from your phone, from social media, you tune into yourself, you ask yourself what's important to you, who are you really? And then you get those answers. You know where to go and turn to in community. Look at what's local. Look at events that are happening around you that you can invest your time and energy into. Whether it's volunteering or it's a fundraiser or it's a dance class, whatever